Just as I was getting used to my new job, I got an unexpected call from my former company's president, John. It had been a month since I worked there as a contractor.
Fix the new system's malfunction.
The reason I, a mere contractor, received a sudden termination notice was that John ignored my advice and trusted only in an incompetent employee, Mike, who got the job through connections and couldn't do his work properly. And then, John just couldn't believe I was already working for another company. I'm already working next door, so that's impossible. I felt sorry for the president panicking on the other end of the phone. He kept looking down on me, then just went ahead and hung up the phone without letting me get a word in. What happens at that company now doesn't concern me, but I do recognize the favor of being hired first. However, if they try to get me to work again, I'll have to make John and Mike, the ones who falsely accused me, pay a proper price. My name is Eric. Struggling to find a job, I was worried I'd end up unemployed. Just when I was about to give up after the next rejection, John took a liking to me in the interview, and I ended up working as a contractor at a tech startup. I was concerned about the majority being contractors with few full-time employees, but I owe a lot to the company that took me in. This company mainly takes on software development projects to assist with the digital transformation of small to medium-sized businesses, often tackling hands-on problem-solving requests, including industrial system design. The competition in the tech sector is fierce, and the projects brought in by sales are always challenging. But having gained hands-on experience through part-time jobs during my student days, I find the work fulfilling. I have no complaints about my job. It's fun and keeps me busy every day. However, the one thing that bothers me in a bad way is the presence of Mike, sitting there acting all high and mighty as a supervisor. Mike, a full-time employee, serves as the head of the software development department where I work. Yet, Mike's incompetence is well known within the department. Despite working at a software company, he's such a novice that he can't even code a simple Excel program. He's not completely computer literate, but tasks that take us 10 minutes can take him 3 hours. Instructions from Mike are always vague and careless, but as a lowly contractor, I couldn't complain. According to contractors who have been working here since before I joined, John has gone through 2 divorces, and Mike appears to be the child from his first marriage. Mike, who has been gaming since his student days, continued to live a jobless life even after graduating from college. Out of desperation, his ex-wife begged John to hire Mike as a full-time employee. This was a classic case of nepotism. And then John, who decided on the hire, immediately gave Mike, who had no proper work experience, a managerial position right after joining, and even put him in charge of contractors. Perhaps because of this, Mike, feeling overconfident, behaves arrogantly towards everyone.
You can't even do something this simple. I could finish it in half the time. But I'm letting you do this job for your sake, so you should be grateful to me.
While Mike always looks down on us, no one has ever seen him actually work properly. Yet, no one can oppose Mike, John's son, and I could only deflect the conversations. One day, Mike, who isn't in sales, suddenly brought in a project, but it was an unreasonable request. From looking at the specification document, it was clear that the project couldn't be delivered without several meticulous discussions and revisions with the client. No employee would voluntarily take on such a project. Since no one else would take it, I reluctantly took charge of the task. I checked with the sales department, and it seemed Mike had taken on the project on his own to boost his reputation. Looking at the specification document, I thought the overly ambitious project could be managed due to some leeway in the delivery schedule. However, I was gravely mistaken. I started the work after several detailed discussions with the client company. Then, when things started taking shape, Mike suddenly gave an impossible order.
Get that project delivered in 1 month. My order is final, got it?
The 1-month deadline for delivery was utterly impossible. Not only coding the program, but considering debugging to find errors and subsequent fixes made the schedule infeasible. I tried telling Mike it was impossible, but it was no use.
A contractor daring to complain to me, a full-timer. I said get it done in a month, so you will deliver in a month.
Mike often ignores me, but this time he seemed unusually frantic. Though it was a bare minimum effort, I managed to release just in time as Mike instructed. After the release, I found out from the client that Mike had mistakenly accepted the project with an unrealistic deadline. In fact, the client hadn't expected it to be completed on time either. When I proposed, given the rush, the system might encounter errors, which we'll fix as they arise, the client appreciated my work more than expected. A week later, as I predicted, we received a system error report. As I was about to head to the client, John arrived at my place, furious.
You're the one who released that system to that company, right?
I couldn't understand why John was so angry. The client was aware of the potential errors. Even after explaining, John wouldn't listen and even blamed me for Mike's order mistake.
Not only did you mess up the deadline, but you also caused a system error within a week. Don't do sloppy work. This is why contractors are unreliable. Are you trying to ruin this company?
John, who told you that?
Mike, he wouldn't lie to me.
Given meeting Mike's unreasonable demands, my work should have been appreciated. It was a tough project, but as a contractor, I couldn't argue back. As I was apologizing to John, Mike returned from the smoking area and joined John in blaming me instead of defending me. John wouldn't even bother to listen to what I, a contract worker, have to say, but he believed Mike's incorrect reports. The client was actually thankful for meeting their unreasonable request and understood the possibility of system errors.
So you knew the system could fail and released it anyway? Is this the kind of half-baked work you always do? This is why contractors are useless. We can replace you anytime.
After berating me, John left the office angry without listening to me. And Mike, having pinned all the blame on me, looked down at me with satisfaction. The following week, we received another error report from the client. Having prepared for the anticipated errors, I immediately went to the client's company. Upon returning, Mike summoned me.
What's with your work? Doing things halfway.
This project was problematic from the start. The error was anticipated, so we're still okay. I never wanted to cut corners on my work. That's why I could handle the expected errors by preparing in advance. But Mike was not convinced. For Mike, who wanted to boost his own reputation, the ongoing errors in the project he directly accepted were the issue. While I was explaining to Mike that the project was now fine, John came in, red-faced again.
You again. How many times do you have to mess up?
I tried to explain that the project was successfully completed, but John wouldn't listen at all. Frustrated by John's attitude, which only considered Mike's incompetent interjections, I gave up arguing.
I wouldn't make such simple mistakes.
This guy says so. We don't need an incompetent like you. Your contract is terminated as of today. Don't bother coming back. Pack your things and leave.
A week later, despite other employees' attempts to keep me, my long-term contract was suddenly terminated. I really had to leave the company. A month after being fired, I received a direct call from John on my phone. Wondering why he would call after all this time, I answered,
Hey, contractor, the system's down. Fix it.
I was surprised at John's first words. Wondering what he meant by system failure, I realized it was no longer my concern after being unilaterally fired. I'm working at the company next door now, so that's impossible.
I don't care about that. You're just a contractor, right? Quit that contract and come back to fix this right now.
John said what he wanted and hung up. The project Mike had unreasonably taken on should be working fine. I wondered what he was talking about. Asking me to work now of all times must have been some mistake. I brushed it off and went back to my current job. But within an hour, my phone rang again. This time it was Mike.
Where are you right now?
Like I told John, I'm working at the company next door and can't do anything for you. Must be some mistake. I'm busy, so I'm heading up now. I explained politely, but neither John nor Mike seemed to listen.
Don't talk nonsense, just get here. As a contractor, you should be happy I'm offering you work, just come to the office now.
While tilting my head, wondering what Mike was on about, he just ranted and hung up. Curious about what was happening, I contacted a friend still working at John's company, only to find out the place had become chaotic since I left. Apparently, Mike had taken on another unreasonable project right before I quit, and now the whole staff was scrambling to finish it. I was even more surprised to hear that I supposedly took on the project and then abandoned the work before quitting the company. Since I left, complaints had surged, and with the current staff overwhelmed, John himself had to step in, an unprecedented situation. But that wasn't all. Among the complaints, some clients specifically requested me, appreciating my previous work on error handling. Despite being directly fired by John and having left the company, it was problematic for me to be involved now. The rest of the day, my phone stayed silent. Maybe they were too busy to call again. I thought that would be the end of it, but my assumption was naive. The next day, Mike called again. His disdainful attitude unchanged, trying to coerce me into working for the same unreasonable reasons as before. I've said this multiple times, but my situation has changed, so I can't just take on your work easily.
Who do you think you're talking to? Don't get cocky. Useless contractor like you can't do proper work anyway, just do as I say.
So you're trying to get such an incompetent me to work. Isn't it strange to keep calling someone you think can't do the job?
That's just come to the office now, okay?
There seemed to be a hint of desperation in Mike's voice over the phone. But like yesterday, he just made his demands and hung up. Mike must be in over his head with another unreasonable project, causing trouble for everyone else. But my position had completely changed, so there was nothing I could do. Despite repeated calls from Mike, my response remained the same.
Concerned about the contract period. I can negotiate an extension for you. We just really need people right now, so come immediately.
They must be desperately short on staff. Though I disliked Mike, I felt a sense of obligation to the company that had once taken me in. Reluctantly, I discussed the situation with my current boss. He was understanding but had conditions. It turned out I could be involved as an external contractor for a short period if the company agreed. I told Mike I might be able to help this time only, as a special exception. So I can support you as an external contractor for a short period, but you will pay the consultancy fee, right?
You're coming back to the company. You should have just done as I said from the start.
Mike, as usual, didn't listen to me, pushing his misunderstandings and demands. When I mentioned the consultancy fee the company proposed, Mike was outraged at the amount.
What? Why should I pay such a huge amount to someone like you? Are you making a fool of me?
Indeed, the fee was substantial. But given that they were specifically requesting me, not as a contractor but for external support, the high fee wasn't unreasonable. Who's joking here? I'm offering to take this on as a formal job.
I'm offering to hire you again, so just listen to me as a contractor should.
In the end, Mike, not agreeing to the fee, looked down on me over the phone before hanging up. The next day, as I arrived at work, I ran into Mike by chance in front of the office building. Seeing me, Mike approached with a smirk.
Right. A mere contractor like you wouldn't defy my orders, huh? Yesterday must have been some joke. I'll hire you on a long-term contract again, so be thankful.
Mike started talking about my salary as a contractor and future work as if he had the right to decide. Without any contract documents, nevertheless, the employment terms Mike mentioned were outrageously bad. He even proposed a salary lower than what I had made previously as a contractor, which was absurdly unfair. I sighed heavily at Mike's unreasonable behavior and pointed towards the company I was now working for. I'm about to head into work, so excuse me. As I tried to enter the building where my current company's office was located, Mike grabbed my arm.
Hey, not that way. There's plenty of work here, come on.
Despite my repeated explanations, Mike just didn't get it.
Your job isn't over there.
No, as I've said many times, I'm working at this company now.
But this is the building where that subsidiary of the major corporation is located, right? So, you're saying you work here as a temp for one of the companies in this building?
Frustrated by Mike's condescending attitude, I sighed again and slowly explained. Not at all. I'm now working as a full-time employee at one of the major corporation's subsidiaries in this building, which you should know.
What? That's impossible. There's no way someone who was just a contractor until recently could get a full-time position at such a renowned company.
Confused, Mike pulled my arm harder. I was dragged back outside again. I had enough and shook off Mike's hand. That's why I said, if it's about contracting for support, I've sent an estimate. It seemed Mike finally understood where I was working. Stunned at my words, he just stood there. My working for this major corporation was definitely a result of a chance connection. After being fired and feeling lost, a company I had inconvenienced due to Mike's unreasonable demands contacted me. I was nervous about possibly overlooking something in my previous error-fixing work. But the company's president personally thanked me, bringing me to tears. Noticing my situation, the president invited me over, and upon hearing about my sudden layoff, introduced me to a troubled project at a large tech company. After quickly completing the task, a manager from the major company offered me a job. Now, as a full-time employee, I was busy handling significant projects. Right after joining the company, I was given a major project to handle, so I was receiving calls from Mike and John during busy work hours. Mike, still not believing me, kept insisting on rehiring me as a contractor. I mentioned my current salary, which seemed to shock Mike, probably earning more than him. If he still wanted to hire me, I handed him the contract invoice I had with me, marked with the major company's name and the president's signature. Mike was speechless and dejectedly returned to his company. Working in the field of system development, I've heard bad rumors about John. It seemed he's been repeatedly taking on reckless contracts and failing to fulfill them. Mike, who's always making empty promises, continued to ignore and touch projects and repeatedly accepted contracts they couldn't fulfill. As a result, John's company went bankrupt. Not only have contract workers been getting laid off due to John's selfish behavior, but even full-timers are quitting, and it seemed like bankruptcy was only a matter of time. With John's company going bankrupt, there was a sudden influx of requests from the companies that had previously designated me for their orders, and my workplace became extremely busy. Successfully completing these tasks brought a sense of fulfillment and value. After successfully completing the sudden increase in projects, I continued to tackle numerous large projects afterward. Recognized for my achievements within the company, I was able to secure a promotion and a transfer to headquarters. One day, while working on detailed tasks at headquarters, I requested temporary staff. To my surprise, Mike showed up. Mike's work on system debugging was meticulous, finding errors I missed. Despite not expecting much for that Mike, to be honest, praising his work, Mike responded with a slight sarcasm. In continuing to assign work to Mike on temporary basis, despite his consistently brash and abrasive demeanor, his outspoken opinions gained him a reputation within the company. Continuing to request Mike as a temp, he revealed new talents, despite his usual arrogance. Mike gradually started to change his attitude and language to a more serious tone. Now, all the various events that happened at that company are fond memories. If it hadn't been for John's company taking me in, I wouldn't be where I am today. Now, with Mike's help, I'm working hard every day to be of service to many people.